Welcome to the season finale. You type sudo-i on a production box, and instead of a root prompt, you get a slap. Sudoers is world writable, refusing to run. So the cause is already on the table. No mystery, no forensics. The whole episode is about what you do next, when the usual escape hatch is bolted shut and there's no root shell waiting in the wings. So it's worth naming that inversion out loud. Every other episode in this series hides the cause behind a misleading symptom, and the work is the diagnosis. This one is the opposite. Sudo prints the problem on the first line, and the work is the recovery, which is the part almost nobody has actually practiced. And the reason sudo refuses is sound. A world-readable sudoers means any user could grant themselves root, so reading it at all would hand over the machine. So here's the latter, cheapest fix at the top. First, check if you already have a session open somewhere, a stray tmux, an old SSH window, because 30 seconds beats 40 minutes, and almost everyone skips this step. Then pyexec, which bypasses sudo entirely by going through polkit. Great on a desktop, usually useless headless. Console root login works only if root actually has a password, which on cloud images it doesn't. Below that, you're into bootloader territory, as replacing PID1 before authentication even exists, and finally, pulling the disk and fixing it from another machine. That last one takes 20 minutes and always works. And note, rescue.target would be gentler, but it prompts for the root password we don't have. Rung 4 in full, and it has to be filmed on the console because we're going through grub. On Debian and Ubuntu, interrupt the boot, edit the Linux line, and replace init with bash. You land as PID1 on a read-only root, so remount. Fix the sudoers permissions, remount read-only, and exec the real init. On RHEL family systems, you use rd.break instead, which drops you into the init ramps with the real root over at sysroot. Crude in, fix the file, and here's the one that bites people. Touch, auto-relabel. You just edited a file with Linux out of the picture. Skip the relabel and the next boot fails in ways that look nothing like the problem you started with. Now, a quick detour because the same class of accident shows up in a slightly different costume. Look at the LS output. Permissions are RWXR XRX, no S, where the owners execute bit lives. That missing setuid is the entire reason an ordinary user can become root through sudo. Chmodding 4755 back on fixes the one you tripped over, but passwd, su, mount, and ping all live on the same mechanism. So if a recursive chmod under AJUSR caused this, patching one binary is theater. The honest fix is dpkg, verify, or rpmva. Let the package database tell you every mode that no longer matches, and restore from there. So before we close out, here's the one habit that would have prevented every recovery step in this episode. Anytime you're about to touch something that governs privilege, sudoers, shdish config, pom, the root account itself. Open a second root session first and leave it sitting there. Make your change in the first shell, verify it works in the second, and close that safety session last. And then 3 specifics. Use vsudo because it syntax checks and locks. Never run chmod, r against, etc., yusr or var, because those trees have no problem that a recursive mode change solves. And actually rehearse the break glass path once on a lab VM, so grub single user isn't a thing you're learning at 3 a.m. Zooming out from this one episode, 3 habits kept surfacing across the whole season. First, the error message almost always named the cause. SSH's log in episode 1, Erno 13 and 7, a device unit in 8, verify code 21 in 11. The answer was on screen. We just theorized instead of reading. Second, check the pool you can't see. DF counts blocks, not inodes. Free shows the host, not your C group. And third, cause and symptom drift apart. A DNS chain surfaced 4 days later by a reboot. An fstab wrong for 3 weeks. So reboot on purpose while you're awake. And then there's the pattern that deserves its own slide. 4 times this season, the guardrail was right, and our first instinct was to disable it. Strict modes on the SSH key, SLinux twice, Sudo refusing a world-readable sudo-ers file. Every one of those refusals was pointing at a real permissions bug that took 5 minutes to fix properly. Flip the switch instead, strict modes, no, set and force 0, and you've traded a 5-minute fix for a permanent hole you won't remember drilling. That's the season. 12 failures, diagnosed live, and hopefully a few instincts sharpened along the way. 12 more scenarios are already written for what's next, so the question I'll leave you with is this. Which one on the list would you have solved fastest, and which one would have had you stuck at 3 a.m.? Tell me on the channel. Until then, keep the guardrails on, and I'll see you in the next terminal.